4 bounty hunters here chose to go first, which is the most common thing we've seen so far. OCX looks super ready, super chill as well. Yeah, it's insane how they are performing every month, despite just looking like, hey, we're just here to have fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, you may be able to sense some of that. If we just go back to the last monthly final, actually, they didn't manage to qualify. So I think a roster change was sort of due. Of course, it's always fun to see what's going on with Tufa and who he's acquired. Now we have Senin joining in place of Right-a-Foot, who's gone to a completely different roster. They didn't manage to qualify this month, so maybe that's the correct one to go for.
As you can see, no global bans here being selected, but we do have Damien and Otis both being banned out. So both a very strong tank and a very effective tank counter have been taken away. It might be the bounty hunters don't want to mess with that, but there are a lot of incredibly good brawlers that are still available here with only 2 global bans actually being utilized.
Some of the meta brawlers like Chester, like Crow, like the Edgar, the Naja are all still open. Mortis as well. I believe that in the last week in East Asia and EMEA, Mortis, Edgar have been one of the highest banned brawlers overall. Damien was actually left open by many teams, which was a bit of a surprise. He was played very often when it was a team that maybe didn't have as much experience. They thought, hey, it's a good meta brawler, let's just go with it. And then we had teams like Foot and Humble, for example. They left him open, didn't ban him in the regular stage, and nobody picked him.
Yeah.
Look, I do think he's very powerful, but he's going to be susceptible to the same, brawlers as other tanks are, right? A lot of tank counters can be very effective, but he has a super that is like El Primo's and that a gap closes, but it also locks you in that space with you, and a gadget that's either great for self-sustain or to create walls and really mess things up around the map. And like a less commonly used star power, right, where you can set people on fire inside of his super. So broadly very powerful, but it's that mobility and disruptiveness on that third attack from Damien that should make people terrified of him. And I think just in terms of the class of tank brawlers right now, he's head and shoulders above the rest.
So Damien came in. We now have a 1.5x multiplier. A lot is on the board. So let's kick things off right away with our first match of the day. We are on Pinhole Hunt, a Brawl Ball map to kick things off. Why not? I'm all for it. Now, bounty hunters sitting at the top of the leaderboard. OCX must be nervous to go up against them. The giant of the region, now with an additional point from the Brawl Cup. They're so far ahead of the rest of the region.
They are. It's almost at a point where it's going to be difficult to catch up with them. I think a solid performance this month could possibly put them in a clinch scenario next month, which also with 1.5x points is way tougher to get that kind of gap. They are really just that good. And they also have their gold bands in. They have plenty of tools to work with OCX not submitting anything.
And with the teams now ready, or getting ready, we also want to have a look at the draft. Usually, bounty hunters likes to go with something aggressive here. They like to play a Buster, the Leon. Potentially, both of those picks are open. And on the other side, we see that OCX Division hasn't actually scrimmed this map very often. Surprise!
I think the Ems is a really interesting choice. Obviously, it's good against tanks, right? A lot of these more choked up part of these maps, as long as she doesn't get run up on. So, curious to see how she's supposed to deal with Chester. That doesn't seem great for Ems at all. Even is like, I think you can close the gap pretty effectively with the Kenji.
I think so too, and I really just think that's the idea here. I feel like you could do it even more effectively with Mortis, who is in play here, but they want to go ahead and lock in their assassin now. You can see they're also picking up Chester as a way of dealing with the potential Mortis. If it came down to things that you pair with this Ems, I think I see Leon quite a bit. Gets you in a mid really quickly, and is going to be so strong inside of those bushes. A Charlie is always going to be a great defensive option, and with, the typical stuff of like Chester and Otis already taken out of the mix, I feel like this is number 3 in line. Also with Crow being banned out, of course.
As I already mentioned, bounty hunters likes to play aggressive on this map, so makes a lot of sense for me. OCX picking up 2 counters to that already. Leon coming in, like you mentioned, really good to get into the mid fast, and it's all about mid control on Pinhole Hunt. Keep in mind here as well, this was the map pick of bounty hunters. They see that OCX hasn't scrimmed this map too often. They're already in an advantage here, you could say so. Now, draft-wise, I really like the draft of OCX on the left side now. Could come in with something aggressive. Still, the the Buster I mentioned earlier, or to double down with something to counter, bring in a bit more range. Carl is going to come in here, and of course with his heat ejector gadget, really good to pin down that mid.
I also think that you don't want to be M's getting run up on by the Carl. As someone who can obviously bypass the gas pretty effectively, get to grips on the M's and make it much harder for RDZ to exercise that level of map control. It's not the most durable composition here, I think, for OCX division, whereas we know that, Carl during Super, with that reinforcement on his star power, can hit that a little bit harder, can be harder to clear off here. I think that this suits Bounty Hunter's aggressive tendencies very well, this setup. They are going to have to be wary of those cocoons off the Charlie so they're not stopped in their tracks.
We're kicking off the summer split here in South America with the front runners of the region, Bounty Hunters, with the greatest chance to make it as #1 seed in the postseason. Tufa is absolutely deleting everything all the way to the goal, and I'm blown away. I cannot believe he got a rollout like that.
He got a good matchup to start with. I think getting a run up on the Carl was pretty darn good for the Leon. Prosa needs to be a bit more of aware of this going forward, I think. And obviously the lollipop drop with the invisibility maintained after you leave it for a time still makes Leon a bit terrifying. Wesley doesn't fancy the fight, but is able to clear the ball. Pass up to Portox now, who go after the M's. We've got Slashimi available, but no chance to super.
That was a wonderful defense from RDZ to blast away Kenji over towards the right side. It's going to be a difficult hold at mid for Bounty Hunters. They just don't have something like M's that will be able to hold this down. Nonetheless, here comes a Kenji Super 4. No impact with it, in fact, and a super from RDZ to push everyone back into mid. Now, having mid is absolutely vital for them to stage an attack, but with Charlie, with her spiders, with her super as a method of defense, it's going to be so difficult for them to push in.
Defensively, the comp is really good. I like Wesley's heat ejector there to actually get some mid-control, but Tufa now with the hypercharge, he's going to start to take that back. He's going to be hitting very hard with the shuriken. Wesley, though, has the stun super. He's able to take Tufa out of the game. Meanwhile, Portox trying to create some space at the top of the map, but Prosa would love to go in here. Protect the pirouette, a must, though, to survive that dive.
I'm shocked at how much of an issue this M's has been. Here's the rocket up the right side. That's the kind of synergy that we needed to see from Bounty Hunters. After a really sluggish beginning, they will equalize the score here in game 1.
Nice little link up there between the destructive super of Wesley. And here's a Slashimi coming in, mostly for the iframes, I think, to avoid RDZ and that side, that caustic charisma. Senin looking dangerous now as well. It's all up to Wesley on his own. They're going to run it in on him. Senin survives long enough to get through. And OCX take our first game.
Starting things off with a bang, I'm pretty surprised that Bounty Hunters have been caught so off guard by this Leon. They just cannot manage to take control of mid. You understand that the Carl is here as, fairly strong brawler, but really not in the forefront of the meta right now, and it doesn't seem like it's that great of a response to many of the things here. Like, I understand you can round the corner, maybe you can get onto M's, you can get rid of all of the Charlie spiders, but beyond that, what purpose are you serving? Everything else on the field is extremely meta.
Wesley here has to respect the yo-yo damage. Portox again, a tough job, I think, so far to creep up on his M's, and there's a caustic charisma from RDZ. Portox doesn't fancy any of it. He's going to give it the distance it deserves. Tufa caught out, but a stun instantly, though. Nice job, but still, you've got to convert off this. Nice little friend zone to force Portox back. It looks like there was a stun as he got caught on the edge of the barrier. And that, of course, is the Charlie super. So effective on defense now, but Tufa's coming back only to get rinsed instantly.
Looks like a goal and a half for Bounty Hunters, but they're still going to retreat. They didn't want to risk maybe Charlie respawning with a super RDZ with the gadget. Nonetheless, those gadgets and supers are going to be here now. It's going to be the push in from Portox after a good cleanup from Prosy. Wesley giving them some time before he puts this one in the goal, easily taking the lead here in game 2.
That was a nice super there for Portox to start that off. Caught 2 players with some of those slashes. RDZ goes very low and yes, gets some invulnerability frames with a hypercharge because of those the buffies. Unfortunately,